Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Richard's Podcast Land. And today we will be having Chris as going to be our guest for this episode. But before we get started, how are you doing today so far?
I'm doing great. Glad that it's Friday. Looking forward to the weekend. How about yourself, Richard?
I'm doing very well. It's such an honor to have you here in my podcast series today. I really appreciate having you here.
Well, thanks for having me. Thanks for reaching out, sir. It's my pleasure.
Why, no problem. I heard Kingpin is such a powerful and commanding character. Like, what was your first reaction when you found out you would be voicing him?
It was overwhelming. I was just so overjoyed. If in our business, we're always auditioning, we're always trying out for stuff, we're always sort of trying on new hats, and very few of those stick, very few things come through. So it was surreal to get this opportunity and to, I'm based out in Florida, so I flew out to LA to record. And what's more is that this game is filled with so many colleagues that I deeply admire and have looked up to for a lot of my career. So it was absolutely overwhelmingly joyful, I would say.
Yeah, that sounds like a big responsibility, Kingpin already has such a strong reputation, so hearing how you approach that makes the performance feel even more grounded.
Thank you.
A character like Kingpin can sound intimidating very easily. Like, how did you make sure he still felt believable and human?
That's a great question. I think more so than we're talking about the sound, right, and how intimidating he can be, I think focusing more on the why, what is behind that. And a lot of that development came from reading the comics, reading the entirety of Born Again arc by Frank Miller and the Man Without Fear arc from Frank Miller, as well as stuff from Amazing Spider-Man, Punisher Max, Civil War II, all these different sources to try and kind of psychoanalyze or find the core of this character. And, he's a very, very complex character, as I think you'll agree. And so a lot of my energy went towards understanding why he is so brutal and why he is so intimidating or feels that way. Yeah.
Yep. If a character feels too exaggerated, people usually disconnect from it. The way you described it makes him feel more real instead of just loud or, aggressive.
Yeah.
I do know Marvel fans are very passionate about these characters and their history. Did that add any pressure when stepping into a role like this?
I think so. I think it was a lot of pressure. I remember I was talking to someone the day after the character, I think, had been announced and my role had been announced. And they were a friend from out of town that had come into town, unrelated to go to MegaCon, and we're in the car, talking about comics, of course, and they, just brought up, they said, how are you going to deal with all of this expectation? How do you deal with all this pressure? And I, honestly said, I'm so new to it that I'm still figuring it out. But I think what was true that day and what has been true since is just really focusing on the work, really reiterating to myself, making clear to myself that I am putting forth my very best work and putting forth all of my energy to do this correctly. The rest is up to the fans. And so it's just been an honor to be able to take up this mantle in this game and get to kind of walk in the footsteps of all these amazing Kingpins that have come before me and that will come after me. It's been an absolute honor. And I think focusing on the process has helped me not panic too much about the colossal expectation.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Was working on a Marvel project something you ever hoped to do before joining Marvel Rivals?
Marvel was so high up in the sky, for me growing up and attending all the Marvel movies and having my favorites here and there and whatnot. I did grow up with DC stuff, so I actually like dreamed perhaps more actively about being in DC stuff. But both of those seemed completely impossible. So I didn't spend too much energy on it. So that's what made it even more surreal to get to record for that, and I'm starting to get to meet the cast, and we're moving in the direction of doing some cons together and stuff like that. So it still feels kind of unreal.
Marvel has such a huge history, so being part of that world in any way must feel very exciting on a personal level.
Truly, truly, and just such an honor, really.
Yeah, that's very cool. For people who want to get into voice acting, what advice would you give to them?
I would say, I think we frame a lot of voiceover education as getting specifically voice over training. I would start your training on the stage. I would start your training with regular, traditional theater acting. Maybe take an improv class. It's a nice, easy, low level commitment. You don't need special equipment. You get to meet a bunch of wonderful people that are like minded. Maybe join a community theater production, maybe a musical, maybe a play, and start to learn about the core of acting. And I think that you'll find so much that you'll gain from that experience translates very directly into voiceover.
Facts there, bro. Facts there. All right, that is it for this episode. Thank you so much, Chris, for joining here in my podcast series. I really appreciate having you here.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate you.
No problem. And I hope you have a wonderful day. And remember, stay awesome, stay positive, and stay happy for all of your fans and co-stars, all right? Have a good day, Chris.
Thanks, Richard. You too. Bye.
You too. Bye-bye.